a much better, stronger league. They could reward the athletes. They could make sure the athletes want to play, year round in this league. They could do that. And I saw this the other day. The Hurricanes owner invested more in the Alliance of American Football League, which is probably going to last a year or two or fold. We all know that's the deal. Than has ever been invested in women's athletics. And I know that's not scientific. I'm not throwing you numbers, but I think that's right.
Well, it is, and that's what we're faced with. And I think, the challenge is that this person is passionate about football and whatever he's embarking on. He's passionate about it. He knows he's not going to make any money, but he's going to be passionate. He doesn't care. He's got so much money, and so that's sort of how it is for all men's professional leagues, including the MLS that's come to the U.S. that let's build them stadiums. Let's use taxpayer dollars to do that. Women don't have the benefit of that. We're kind of stuck in, hey, what's ever left, wherever we can fit you, wherever you're not going to, disturb us too much. And so, but it's because of the passion that people have for men's sports, whether it's, in the NBA in the early ages, Major League Baseball, NFL. The NFL at one time had to play before a high school game, so that there was interest. So they all came from this place of a lack of interest. But these owners, through all of that, because they had a passion for it, they didn't care how much money they were losing.
The NBA was in such bad shape at one point that they had Sid Hartman as a general manager.
Did they really? Sid Hartman was?
Well, he was kind of. I
didn't know that.
Well, yeah, that's part of Sid's legend is that he was general manager of the Minneapolis Lakers.
Oh, wow!
And that is, as with most things with Sid, it's partially true. He was the general manager. He was kind of the guy who made sure the towels were there after the practice.
Okay, that's what I do as general manager.
Oh, yeah, right. He didn't choose the players.
Okay.
He knew the players. He helped run the business.
Yeah.
He was not the basketball mind behind the Minneapolis Lakers' success.
Yep.
He leaves that part out when he tells the story. But I know I had a point to make before I started ripping on Sid. But my legitimate point was the NBA was a nothing league for a long time.
That's right. And it, all the way into the 80s, they were flying commercially. They had just one assistant coach on staff. Bill Lambier reminds me of these things when we, when we get discouraged sometimes at the progress. But the fact remains that the mindset has to change about women in sport, women in business, women in politics, wherever, women in the military. And it has changed, but it's just a snail's pace. And it's, be patient. Or, Adam Silver making comments, almost every time they talk about the WNBA say that it's all it does is lose money. And that is just, how are you supposed to be successful when the top of your organization is spewing that narrative? So we've got to change the narrative. There are a lot of people that care about women's sports that are highly passionate about it. We need people with the type of money that a Joe Tsai has to say, I am passionate about women in sports and women's basketball, and they will invest in it. We need more of that, and we see more of that, just like we saw in the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball. It will evolve, and the interest will be there as you have owners that are passionate that can stick through the times where maybe you're not making as much money as you want to make.
And somebody mentioned during the NBA All-Star game, I can't remember where I saw it. I read way too much. I have trouble sometimes remembering where I saw what. But somebody pointed out that, like Kyrie Irving makes more in a quarter and a half or 2 quarters of play than a WNBA player makes in a season. And I understand capitalism. I'm a capitalist. I'm trying to make capitalism work for me. But there are certain levels of imbalance that just aren't healthy.
Yeah, and I've never been one to say, we should make as much as an NBA player. I think it's absurd. The levels of, salaries for professional sports, anything, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, any of it. But that's not, I don't have any say in that. That's what fans are deciding. They're continuing to pay, and you have corporations continuing to sponsor, provides them, the wealth to be able to do that. We just don't see the same thing on the women's side. So people ask me a lot of times, when will it change? How can we get players to stay year-round? And, well, you got to pay them. But how do we do that? It's not enough just to say you got to fill the stadium with 10,000 people and make X amount of revenue. It's really not about that. It's about the commitments from a TV partnership.
TV's such a big part of
It's huge. And then certainly from a sponsorship dollar situation. We lack severely. We do have a deal with ESPN, but it pales in comparison to the MLS that just came on, and its ratings are
Which is
about
a minor
the same.
league, by the way.
It's a minor league, and the ratings are about the same, and they got 3 times the deal that the WNBA got. We are thankful for ESPN, no doubt about it. When we got that deal, I think it was in 2014, we were very excited. Now, ESPN, after 2014, they upped their deal a little bit. They lengthened it, the amount of money we're all getting. Very, very important. But again, it's this mindset of be happy with what you're giving. And that's not the mindset on the other side. And $75 million for the MLS, $25 million for the WNBA. They got 3 times. And the rate, we always hear, well, they're not interested in women's sports. But the ratings are saying that it's about the same. And so we just treat women differently. And corporations are big culprits of that. They're not sitting there, saying, how can we get involved? When the Minnesota Timberwolves come in to do, a spiel, they're not saying, what about the Lynx? We want to be a part of the Lynx too. Some of it is your own corporation. It doesn't have the same passion that they should, when you have the 2 teams. And so we have a long, long way to go to financially, close that gap. But I will say that gap is absurd in terms of the amount of money that professional basketball players are making.
Let's do some Twitter questions. And again, if you'd like to advertise with this program or the network, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. From Cindy Smith on Twitter, what is the backup plan if Xander Lassini or Fagbenley miss significant time with their national teams? Would the Lynx be short those players? How concerned should we be that the WNBA does not have a president named yet? What does not having a president affect?
So the first part of it, as far as the players, obviously this is information that we have that Xander Lassini and Fagbenley have communicated. We've known this for a long time. So certainly there's a backup plan in terms of some things that we've done in the post free agency wise. The draft is going to be a big part, whereas maybe in past years the draft, I won't say it wasn't important. It was important, but now it's of paramount importance. We could be utilizing those draft picks. We could package them in some way to get a player, or we could actually select in our spots and bring those players in. We're not done in free agency. We're going to continue to build the roster there. They may not be marquee names. That period of free agency is over in terms of the big signings. Again, we understand where the holes are, and we're going to continue to work to fill those. With regard to the president, I kind of piggybacking off of what we were just talking about, caring and being passionate about it. I think that Mark Tatum, who is the interim CEO or COO, whatever the title is, of the WNBA, I think that he's really good on the NBA side. I think that when it comes to times like these, this is what I think of. They hire an outside firm to make the hire. I'm not a proponent for those types of things.
I hate that.
Because there's no way that those firms, I know that they probably think that they do, there's no way that they can really identify what you need because you're in it.
Yeah, it's always a cop-out to hire those outside
And
firms.
so they've done that. And so I think it's much like when these things happen on the women's side, the interest is not as great as you would hope it would be, or the commitment to it. I'm not saying there's not, Adam and Mark aren't working hard. But the problem is in times like these, when you aren't connected to the product as much as we would like them to be, you don't have as good of an understanding of what's needed, number one. They think they know because they want it to be a business person. I'm not necessarily sold on that. I think it's got to be a person that can tell our story in the WNBA, that can engage sponsors. And, we don't have, I don't know of any standalone sponsorship deal. Everything we have is from the NBA. Well, that's an indictment of the league office, and there's a bunch of hurdles when it comes to sponsorships and people you can't talk to, you can't touch this, you can't touch that. Next thing you know, we don't have anything. And I think in this case that Adam and Mark, you go to what you know, and right now I think on our side, I'm not sure how much they know where to go to get the next president. I'm not saying that things aren't being done. There's no question that they're probably very far along in the process, and we'll probably hear something soon. But I say all that to say that our league is running just fine. Not to say we don't need a president, but I think that the each individual franchises, they're the ones that they've got to keep it going. And I think at the league level, we've got some, the staff underneath the president have worked really, really hard to kind of steady the ship, and I wouldn't find it concerning at all.
From Jenny Olson, why was Marlene Stallings so scared to schedule decent teams in non-conference play? Do you think that's accurate, and what do you think of it if it is?
I don't know that Marlene was afraid. I haven't talked to her about this. I wasn't a part of their scheduling process, but I think there's two schools of thought. Collect as many wins as you can, so that by the time you get to conference play, you have a cushion, to best position yourself, for postseason play. There's another school of thought that, whether it's the John Chaney or the Dawn Staley types that want to schedule up and want to schedule as hard a games as you possibly can schedule. In the process, you might lose some games, but the mindset is that you prepare yourself better for conference play. So there's two schools of thought, and Marlene chose the, collect your wins in the preseason.
From Nathan Hansen, longtime listener, I feel there's been a shift away from low or lower cost opportunities for fans to interact with players. Tip a Lynx pregame high fives toward more expensive, less accessible options like Lake Fundraiser, paying for autographs, member appreciation. Any sign that trend will change?
I'm not on the business side, but I certainly am involved. I'm involved in those events that he speaks of. I don't think there's any intention to have a shift away from opportunities for all of our fans. I think we work really, really hard to try to make sure that there's opportunities that are lower cost, and then certainly this is a business, and so we're going to thrive, in the higher cost. And we have fans that want to do both, and so I think that we're pretty mindful of those things. I know that we got away from Tip a Lynx last year. I can tell you that there's a lot of talk about the events this season, maybe bringing back Tip a Lynx. I think there was maybe someone in the position that thought there were better things we could do that maybe didn't work out as well as we all hoped. And so there should be a return to some of the things we've done in the past that will allow access to our players by all of our fans.
Also from Nathan, curious about your general thoughts regarding the recently revealed inclusion of the WNBA in the future NBA 2K video game.
I think it's awesome. Like everything that we talk about on this show, representation matters. And this is not just about, for when women want a game. This is about for, men as well, kind of creating this equality, this awareness. Now, my understanding is that it's not... I'm not a gamer, but my understanding that it's not fully functioning the way that it would be on the NBA side, and that comes as a disappointment because I think if you're going to do it, you do it the same. But again, that just goes to the decision makers that maybe say, I only have a budget to do this much because it's women. We're going to go all out over here because it's men, and that's just one of those things we just fight. Inclusion. Yes, we're thrilled to be a part of it. I think it's very important, but I think it's also important that if you're going to do it, that we are respectful of the women.
And this also crosses over into a lot of other areas in sports and sports media. It's like KFan has built a ratings juggernaut by aiming at the 25 to 34-year-old male. And in doing so, and I've read a couple articles about this topic this last couple of weeks too. So what happens is if you're aiming for that demographic, that's what advertisers are going to pay for, and that's what TV and radio people are going to try to deliver, then what happens is if you end up with any complaints about talking about women's sports or showing women's sports, that gets magnified because they really don't care if they're drawing women viewers and listeners. They only care if they can protect or grow the male audience. And I guess maybe from a sheer cynical business standpoint, that works. It certainly worked for KFan financially. KFan is a financial success, but isn't that a horrible way to go about, living in this world? To discount female and young female listeners and completely sell out to this slim demographic.
Yeah, it's a choice that you make, like you said, how you choose to do business. And KFan has been good to us, but I will say that I get a number of people that say that they enjoy listening to us on KFan and, being included. But I suspect that those compliments probably pale in comparison to the complaints that they get about having to hear, Lynx coach Reeve, or, Lindsay Whalen or whatever else. But that's unfortunate. And there's definitely, as we know, looking at, who's in the office of the president, that there is a large part of the population that would support exclusion. And like you said, this is a business model that has been successful for them. I just prefer, and I think it's a better path for all of us. I do think it's good business to diversify and include. But I guess that KFAN is showing that there's more than one way to be